everyone, my name is Rachel. I was a debater for Methodist College and I am the current coach of Ananda College. I'll be breaking down the round 1 motion at RIC. So the motion reads, "This House regrets the popularity of true crime entertainment." So I'll run through the prop case and the op case and then potential clashes. So on the prop case, there's 3 things that you need to set up. Firstly, what this entertainment looks like. And it's very beneficial on proposition for you to, from the get-go of the debate, portray this as these kind of crimes that are selected are crimes that are anyways deemed controversial or very high-end crimes. That looks like serial killers, murder, high-scale theft, those kind of things. And this kind of crime is highly dramatized and romanticized in this kind of media is something you really need to push. The second thing you need to set up is what this popularity looks like, and you can say this looks like people being obsessed over these crimes once they see a show. This is like people consume this a lot, and this popularity looks like people being obsessed basically with it, and it's the kind of media they demand, entertainment they demand. Sorry. Thirdly, you need to set up what these authors look like. It's important to push that most of the time these authors don't really know anything about forensics, and they may get consultants, but they are the ones writing the book at the end of the day, and they aren't the ones that know this area of crime the best, right? They're not people that practice law or forensic science or whatever related field to this crime. So it's very important. So on proposition, I would say if you can prove this rise in popularity of this kind of entertainment negatively affects the way people see justice and violence and crime in general, and thus is bad for society, then you win this debate. So there's 2 main things that you can push. So the first thing that you can push is in terms of the portrayal of this kind of entertainment. Yeah. So here you can say that, like I told you earlier, so even if it's accurate, right, you can argue that these authors dig out details and everything, that's fine, but still when it comes to exaggerating, and these are things even in very subtle ways, right, of making a character seem more suspicious than they already are, or whether it's tweaking the numbers a bit, or even just a presentation, even if it's something not as drastic as tweaking the number of murders or whatever, you notice that there are exaggerated exaggerated characteristics of this kind of entertainment, because at the end of the day it is entertainment, and the goal of entertainment, besides the art element of it, is that these authors need to get paid. This is their job. So whatever generates them profit is what they will do. So if exaggerating something, making it seem more dramatic is what gets them money, that is what they will capitalize on. So you can argue that these authors don't really know anything, so that can hinder the accuracy. But secondly, even if they have people involved and consulting actual legal practitioners and police or whatever, the entertainment value and the need to generate profits is still very high. And if the audience, and there is a trend where people, the more dramatic something is, the more exaggerated it is, the more shock value it has, the more people are engaged and more likely to read this book or watch this show, right? So that is what authors capitalize on. So you can talk about how that there is a massive exaggeration in terms of the accuracy, but you can also talk about the romanticization of violence, right? And here this looks like, even if they're trying to show a criminal as a bad person, they do it in a way where it seems like the act is somewhat heroic, or it's these people are viewed as cool people because they were able to pull off such a big crime. So for example, if you see, according to Matthew, the murder story about Father Matthew Pires, one can argue that it somewhat romanticizes the character of Father Matthew Pires as being able to as a cool person trying to pulled off 2 murders. So the impacts here is, one, you can talk about the ethical concerns regarding victims, because you're basically commercializing victim suffering for profit. So that's the first thing that you can push, that this is terrible for victims and that it invalidates their suffering. you can say that to a certain extent there's going to be a segment of society that is going to be desensitized to violence, or don't actually understand while they're consuming this that people were hurt in this, right? Especially if it's like romanticizing the criminal, right? But even if it isn't, people tend to forget that this is actual harm that has happened. Secondly, you can say that this evokes sympathy in certain criminal cases, where because the author has portrayed it as such, people feel sympathy for, you know, one or other of whatever character involved in this, and without really knowing the nuances. And often these cases aren't black and white, there's a lot of nuances in it. People, you know, demand for action. Say someone is being like jailed, without properly knowing what's happening. After consuming this media, this looks like them, you know, demanding change from their legislative body. And while this may seem like, oh, progression, the thing is, people don't really know the actual facts and details or the nuances of that situation. It's more of that frenzy and like popularity push of, oh, let's go protest for this. It seems like the right thing, simply because a character was portrayed to me for me to feel sympathy. The third issue there is in terms of people becoming desensitized to violence. So as much as there's a segment of society that becomes so there's going to be a segment of society, you can say, people that just become desensitized to this kind of violence because it's constantly attuing this entertainment. The fourth thing you can like impact here is in terms of criminals that see this, right? Even if it's like a small percentage, you can say that these people are like can cause harm. So people that are like on the fence, so criminals that on the fence, or like about, so what I mean by on the fence, sorry, that's not the right word, but it's people that are going to commit crime, see this and be like, oh, I can have a TV show, so let me like commit my crime in the most, you know, like in the most cool way, or like the most like, you know, serial killers leaving a mark, because like they're going to commit this crime anyway, so might as well get a TV show. That kind of logic is what's portrayed to them, because that way their legacy or their name lives on forever, because this kind of entertainment keeps pursuing it, right? There's a different take on this. It's like, you know, those kind of cases keep going. Yeah, that's basically the first thing you can push for prop. The second thing you can push is in terms of education, and you can take the bet that opposition is definitely going to talk about how like it provides people with awareness, but the first thing you push is it's misinformation, because everything I told you in the first thing about in terms of the accuracy and the portrayal. So people are getting this idea, and this connects to this impact of, you know, people just like protesting or demanding for action with getting proper education. There are other ways you can get people to have legal education that don't involve entertainment, that is contingent on like, you know, pleasing an audience. Second thing you can say is that as much as there's people that are going to be desensitized to violence, there's going to be a part of society where there is increased paranoia. This looks like to parents, older people that see this kind of media that is like like exaggerated or dramatized, and they get really, really scared, paranoid, and become overprotective of their kids. Those kind of impacts. So that's like the basic prop case. The outline of the op case is, so you need to characterize the same three things. What this popularity looks like. Instead, you need to portray it as something where people are, you know, very engaging, actively doing their research around it, not just relying on the movie, that kind of thing. Secondly is in terms of what this entertainment looks like. These are crimes that, you know, aren't really explored or like deemed controversial. And thirdly is in terms of the entertainment, the author. And here you can say that even if the author doesn't really know, they consult a lot of people, and there are already like so many police reports on these cases, and it's based off those things. You can even preempt and say that, you know, this whole thing on prop about authors, you know, not being accurate. So the fact that authors are getting paid means that they really need to be accurate, because at that point they will get called out if not. Yeah. So the two things you can push on opposition. The first thing you can push is how this highlights a lot, right, of things that aren't, what you need to prove on opposition to win is that this provides light, like this provides some kind of attention and education to people, like in legal injustices in the legal system, that without this kind of entertainment and popularity will not be you know, highlighted. Yeah, I could have phrased that better. Yeah, basically that this is one of the only ways that people are actively very engaged in learning about legal things and about crime in society. The first thing you push then is that this highlights a lot of things, and this highlights two things, right? considering these are very high profile cases, the first thing is it gives these victims a lot of validation for their crimes, whether this is, so for example, Girl in the Basement is about a girl that was in captivity for so many years, and we feel that pain. It provokes empathy in us, and that's kind of like, you know, respecting the victim and giving them that validation and making people try to understand their pain. So you can talk about that kind of impact in, like, you know, enforcing empathy on people in society. So even if it's like exaggerated, it's still like, you know, it's still promoting people to have empathy. Yeah, and it also encourages them to, you know, dig into the nuances of the issue. That's the second thing, that, you know, crimes aren't always black and white. You know, the more people do their research, you think of like the nuances. Who do you feel sympathy for? It's not necessarily only the victim. Maybe, like, you know, there's like a few things related to like the wider picture of the crime, like as to why like a criminal did the crime. That's the second thing you need to push then, is that it pushes people to understand those nuances that they don't really understand. Because if you take like news and everything, they try to portray things as black and white because they have a shorter time span to, you know, put this out into the people. And it's often it's the news channels, you know, if you're not really giving a proper stance on something, people are like confused as well, so they try to, you know, pick a side and like try to evoke sympathy onto one side. Whereas this kind of media loves room to explore the nuances of that particular crime. Yeah. So for example, if someone committed like a high theft, like robbery or a murder, what were the root causes of this criminal doing this, or like why they did what they did, you know, what kind of you know, background. It's not saying that what they did is okay, but it's simply finding the nuances as to why, and that can help like solve root causes of issues where like violence spreads, whether it's in drug violence, things like that. Yeah, like the root causes of issues, and that's an impact you can push. The third thing you can then push is, in terms of, this is really important, is about the injustices that happen within the legal system. So for example, Trial by Fire is the way I remember a movie about a man that was put on, I believe, on death sentence for a crime that he didn't commit. So there are so many movies like that that we don't, like, the media doesn't highlight it, and this is their only way. Even if it's after they've died, it still sheds light on an issue that may still be ongoing, and that's really important, right? Whether it's in racial prejudices in the justice system, or like towards sexism in the justice system, or the police, like police brutality, these things are really capitalized and shown in this kind of entertainment. Even if, you know, you can agree to the fact that there is an audience, these people need to make money off it, but again, the more accurate these issues are, the more you like pinpoint issues, the more engaging people are, right? And the more accurate you are. So you can say that these kind of issues within the legal system will definitely be shown. The second big thing then you can push, so the impact there with like showing issues is that people, you know, protest, stand up, and that's really, really important for change. The second thing that you push is in terms of education. This is really important. This kind of entertainment, because it strives to be accurate, provides good legal education for people in a very, very engaging manner, teaches them, like, you know, the wider picture of issues. And it also, this is really important, that it's not like learning law in like a school textbook or like other ways. This shows them a practical application of how law, policing, crime work, like, you know, the way victims feel, all of those things on a very practical level, and that's very, very important. Yeah, so that's like the basic outline of both cases. The possible clashes you can run is like, one clash may be on the accuracy of these crimes, you know, the portrayal of these crimes, if it's justified, is it correct, and I feel like this whole thing about justice to victims will be like a part of this clash, because you're talking about the portrayal of the crime. So are you giving, like, you know, are you validating the victims, you know, pain or not? Second thing is in terms of the precedent it sets for criminals. And thirdly, you can talk about awareness. I think awareness is like, you know, the education clash. You can even add the whole, under the precedent clash, you can maybe talk about social paranoia. So on opposition, just like I told you about social paranoia and proposition, on op, you can argue that people are better equipped to handle situations because now they have some kind of knowledge. Yeah, that's basically the outline of what I had, the outline of both cases. Thank you for tuning in.